welcome. If you like what you hear and see, please subscribe to the Be Your Own Kind YouTube channel. And if you're listening to the podcast, please follow me. Also, in the description box, you can find my Linktree link to all Be Your Own Kind related matters, such as the BYOK merch, where we sell items from t-shirts, sweatshirts, masks, and mugs. Also, you will find our website and the links to my social media. Also, we are always looking to collaborate with others, such as business owners, vloggers, bloggers, or just if you simply want to share your story. Last but not least, if you are looking to promote your business, Be Your Own Kind will gladly promote you. If you are interested in details, please email me at info@beyourownkind.com. Thank you for tuning in and for supporting the Be Your Own Kind platform.
Treasure Glitz customizes stem and stemless glasses, mugs, shot glasses, you name it. I love showing off my personalized glasses. She has customized glasses for personal use and even for the Be Your Own Kind podcast. Customized drinkware is great for standing out at your event or relaxing in style at home. So order your item by calling or texting 708-299-7555.
So hello, Karen. How are you doing today?
I am very, very well, Renita. I was just enjoying our 2-minute conversation so much right now. I think we really started with positive energy. I think any conversation that starts with a mutual love of 80s music and books is going to be a good conversation. So thanks for having me.
Yes, most definitely. Thanks for being on the platform. I love how we just started out saying what we admired about the other person. And thanks for looking me up. I really do appreciate that. I will say, while listening to, I believe it was the podcast, how you started your life over at 40.
Yeah.
Like, that is so courageous because we get so set on age where we like, well, I'm too old to start this and I'm too old to start that. And it's like, no, you're not too old. Into death is the only thing that can stop you from recreating yourself. So I was really inspired by that because I am a person that's stuck on, I should have been here at this age. And I'm like, no, I'm where I'm supposed to be and I can keep moving, recreating myself. So I love that about your story.
Well, I really appreciate it. And it's a very important place to start because all loving of yourself is about the ability to transmit through this life what and who you want to be. And you're not going to do it if you're going to keep thinking that you're somehow behind in life or you're not measuring up. If I can be allowed to go back to the 80s icon, the greatest 80s icon, Renita, who I'm sure you will agree was Alexis Carrington Colby on the awesome soap opera Dynasty. I don't know if you watched it, but I was a big Joan Collins fan. In fact, I'm pretty sure she made me a feminist because she was the badassiest woman who had ever been portrayed on TV. Like there was no one else as mean and as well-dressed as that crazy lady. I heard Joan Collins recently give an interview, 84 years old, God bless her. And somebody said to her, were you very excited about, finally reaching some accolades with Dynasty at your age? And she says, you mean when I was 40? No, I was a baby. And I thought, yeah, the thing is, we never consider about from which perspective, what exactly are you talking about when you talk about how old you are or are you behind? What timetable are you holding yourself up to? There's 7 billion people on this planet. They're not all in sync with when and what we do in what order. So really, whenever you think to yourself, I don't have the place bracket in life to do X, Y, Z, you have to ask yourself the question, according to whom? So, it's funny because I talk about it as it really affected me. I remember being 37 years old and thinking, that's it, it's over. There's no chance for me. I'm never rebuilding my life. I've missed my chance. 37, I'm practically dead. As women, by the way, we're conditioned to think that there is a shelf life and that clock starts ticking the day you turn 18.
You're right.
And here I am 20 years after my 18th birthday thinking, that's it. I'm going to basically fossilize like this. And I was massively wrong. From the other side, because now I'm in my 40s, I think, what a joke. You can do and be whatever you want at any age. If you have the wherewithal and breath in your fabulous, amazing, God-given body, you go do whatever you want. You've got time.
Yes, and I love that. And that's inspirational. That is so inspirational. Because we feel, I think that's where that whole feeling of stuck comes from. Like, well, this is just me forever. I guess I just better go with the flow of things. And no, nothing's forever. So,
Nothing is forever. And think about what stuck means too. Like the world is still moving whether you like it or not. So you're not really stuck. It's like
right.
you're standing on that conveyor belt at the airport, but you're still going to move whether you like it or not. So you can move or you can be moved. You decide.
I like that. I love that.
And personally, I'm that crazy lady who's always cutting past people with their luggage. Like, get out of my way.
Me.
I got a plane to catch. Beep, beep.
Oh God. And it's one side, so I don't understand why. I know this is off subject, but I don't understand why people stand on both sides. There is one side for standing, one side for walking. Why are you on?
I'll tell you why. The world went completely crazy when VH1 stopped playing music. I think you and I can agree. And people just lost their damn manners.
Life's been off balance.
The second Flava Flav came on TV. We were done.
It's just nothing but dating shows from there.
That's right.
So you are the founder of With Enthusiasm Coaching. You're an executive coach. What led you to that career?
The complete and entire collapse of my former life. That's what brought me to this career. If you said to me, even as a book lover, at the age of like 27, would you like to be a coach? I would say, first of all, that's not a real job. And secondly, you've got to be joking. I have real credentials. Everything I was going for in life, Renita, was like what everyone else is going for. It was so white picket fence. It was so what was expected of me. It was so what I thought would make people admire me, that it wasn't really a personal choice. I don't think I ever really thought, what do I love? What am I really good at? How do I get to actually exercise all those things together? Much more likely what happened was I did continue to watch MTV and VH1, which obviously led to E, which obviously led to The Devil Wears Prada and the Kardashians. And like they affected pretty much everybody's worldview, they affected mine too. And so in climbing that particular social status ladder, I think I created a life that looked really good on Instagram, but felt like garbage. And in my mid-30s, I finally started to ask myself, like, what am I even doing this for? It's like Madonna says in her song, American Life, this kind of modern life, is it for me? And it really wasn't for me. The answer was, this is not for me. And that's when I got divorced, which is promptly when I also had to quit my job because I had to move cities. Many people going through a divorce know that this is the upheaval of your entire life. If anyone is out there has been through a divorce, you know that this is a financially devastating event for many people. It was for me. I find myself couch surfing. Now I've done everything right in my life. How am I broke? Couch surfing and reinventing my life in my mid-30s. And this, Renita, was when I started to do the unthinkable, which was instead of reading, I don't know, the next Dan Brown novel, I started to read Stephen Covey. I love Stephen King. I started to read Stephen Covey. I started to read Tony Robbins. I started to follow Oprah religiously. Everything that woman says still resonates with me. Brene Brown, I discover out of the blue. I'd never watched a TED Talk in my life. And slowly but surely, these things start to filter through my brain and completely change my attitude. You know, the more you're exposed to ideas like this, like, you should love yourself. You are worthy. You can start again. Anyone listening to a podcast like this, whether you see it or not, you are raising your vibration. You don't need to lift a finger. Just listen and watch other people who can, and you'll be inspired to be able to do that too. And as I found myself deeper and deeper in the work, I kind of fell in love with it. And that's when I launched With Enthusiasm Coaching, which was 4 years ago, which is, by the way, even while I launched it at the maddeningly old age of 40, been the biggest success of my career and the greatest love of my life.
Nice. I love that.
So you see, sometimes when things fall apart, it's actually a very good thing.
Yeah. And it was unexpected because that wasn't part of your plan.
No.
Like you said, you thought you were already living your plan, the marriage. And I know you lived in Germany and you had a very, very great career and, the quote unquote, dream, and you mentioned, I know I'm skipping ahead my own questions, but you mentioned that even though it looked good on the outside, and you kind of ignored what was happening on the inside. Like, yes, you had the tall husband, but he wasn't really nurturing you. You know what I'm saying?
No,
And
it really wasn't. You're telling the
yeah,
story so beautifully. I mean, like, if anybody scrolls down to like pictures of Karen from 2010 next to the tall guy with the matching tie to her outfit, you'd think, oh my God, that girl has it figured out. She looks like a character from Dynasty. But I was absolutely miserable. The job was like really fine. Honestly, I like my former career. It just wasn't anywhere near what I was capable of doing. It's like when you went out on a limb and decided to dive into blogging, which is something that like so many people don't particularly do, certainly don't take seriously, and don't turn into a career, right? But
right,
you love it, and it allows you to capitalize on your actual strengths. So that took real courage to take that pivot. For me, it was the same thing. It was going from like, this is all right, to I want something fabulous. And in the relationship realm, actually, it was way more messed up because that tall guy, as handsome as he was at the time, was really abusive, massively emotionally abusive. I was berated and chastised for my weight every single day. It's awful to hear somebody tell you constantly, not that you look nice this evening, but that you could really use some liposuction. And that your friends are stupid, and that your life is not going anywhere, and that your career is ridiculous. Like, this is just so painful to bear that at some point I started to ask myself, you know what, maybe it's okay that I'm not asking for more right now, but I definitely don't need to settle for this anymore.
right.
And that's when I started to move.
I like that, and I think that's the decision of no longer living a facade and a quote unquote Instagram life, because on Instagram everything looks great, but we don't know what happens behind the camera, behind the video, the camera, so it's just, I feel like that's empty if you're only living to appear like you're living good.
It's true. And most people can't recognize that. Like, Oprah calls it a deadened life, as if the person living it is dead. I've met a lot of people who are living a deadened life. You can tell that they're trapped in the shadows, but they're not particularly aware of it. So I don't think it's a problem. I think it's only a problem when you yourself go to bed knowing that you are in deep anxiety, that this is not comfortable to you, that you can 100% do and be more in this lifetime. You feel jealousy at the sight of other people. You feel miserable. You feel less than. These are constant feelings in your life. You give your power away constantly. When you're in that state, I promise you, you know that you're unhappy. We don't need to tell you. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's a great thing. Knowing that you're unhappy should start signaling to your brain, it's go time.
Right, exactly. We just have to pay attention. And speaking of feeling uncomfortable, you introduced something I've never heard of before, but I've seen the concept, which was called Imposter Syndrome. So I looked it up, and you probably can expound on it better, but it's basically associating your success to happen chance and not believing that it was actually attributed to your own potential.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and so it also kind of wraps up in that whole idea of being perfect.
Yeah.
Which in my mind is very stressful, because that doesn't leave me room for mistakes. It doesn't leave me room to grow. I have to stick to this. I have to be this way. I have to say these things and be this person. And I see that all of the time.
Yeah.
Even younger, I felt like I had to be what my parents wanted me to be. And then I woke up maybe a couple of years ago, like, what do I want to be? So I found this a very interesting syndrome. So I just wanted to ask you, like, what point of you, I think you already mentioned it, but like, what was the moment where you dropped that perfectionist facade, where you dropped the whole charade?
It was the moment that I hit rock bottom and had to ask for help. That was a big pivotal moment. Imposter syndrome, let's be very clear about what this is. It's particularly attributed to women and to minorities because the research indicates that we experience it more frequently than men. This should be shocking to absolutely no one who has ever worked with men and or lived with them, as I have the great privilege of living. This doesn't mean that we have imposter syndrome. It's just like the term have anxiety. I, as a behavioral therapist, do not particularly buy into that, because that label makes you feel trapped and sometimes can make you feel helpless. that's not the case, you are experiencing anxiety, there are many ways in which you can start to alleviate this anxiety, and people can always help you to get better and better and improve with it. Not only does the research indicate this, so does my practice. So first and foremost, imposter syndrome is a psychological pattern that occurs very frequently in high frequency, over 70% of the time, affects over 70% of women and minorities in particular. And it is what you just beautifully described. It's the feeling that even though you can see evidence everywhere, you have plaques, you have certificates here saying you are good, you did this, you still don't believe your own success. You do something really well and you're like the last person to congratulate yourself. You step off a TED stage after killing it and you go, was I okay? Did I do good? And you don't believe anybody who gives you a compliment. And you're always kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop, like someone's going to discover you or something. Now, most people in my experience know this feeling. And this is because we are conditioned into shaming patterns from the ages of 2 onwards. That's okay. Our parents are well-meaning. Our teachers are well-meaning. And the reason you can start to really work with it rather than against it, not let imposter syndrome really factor into your life, is by identifying it as 4 different states. The first is know-it-all syndrome. You know some know-it-alls? Yes. I know that. I know that already. You don't have anything to teach me. Or the people who like nod along with you, like they're the actual expert and you're like doing them a favor by mimicking what they're saying. Number 2, the perfectionist. You're absolutely right. There is no such thing as perfection. It's ridiculous. But the perfectionist is constantly trying to measure with a measuring stick how the things should be, and then to measure themselves up against that stick of how things should be, constantly perfecting themselves. And the reasoning for that is, if I stay perfect, if I stay in line, if I'm married to the right kind of person, if I look the right way, if I do things the right way, if my food is always amazing, if my children are well dressed, and if everything I ever put out goes amazingly well on Instagram and ends up on the Forbes list, I will not be ridiculed. I will never suffer rejection, and everybody's always going to admire me. You know what? That doesn't work. Just check out Hilaria Baldwin. I understand that she's an extraordinary example of actual fraud, but perfectionism doesn't exist. It simply doesn't exist anywhere in nature. And it's also antithetical to the growth mindset. So you can't really grow from there. You can't improve from there. You can't do big things from there. You don't take any risks.
Right.
The third is defeatism. Defeatism is real imposter syndrome in the negative sense, as in, I won't even try because I know that I'll fail. And everybody's told me that I'm not good enough all my life. So they're probably right. So I don't deserve to be in this room. Now, believe it or not, even Michelle Obama has described feelings like this, like being afraid to walk into rooms filled with men who she thought were absolutely brilliant, like the G12 summit and whatever. And then she said, you know what happened after I spent time in those rooms? I realized they weren't that smart and there was nothing to be scared of. Isn't that the best thing you've ever heard? I hope everybody thinks of that the next time they walk into a boardroom with people they're scared of. You know what? Start thinking they're a little more scared of me than I am of them. And that's true. And the fourth and the last one is kind of surprising. And that is, and this is my particular take on imposter syndrome, and it's workaholism. Many people suffering from imposter syndrome, experiencing imposter syndrome, will manifest it as workaholism. And that's because of the deep-seated belief that if I don't work all the time, everything's going to fall apart. And if I don't work all the time, then obviously I'm not being useful. And if I'm not being useful, clearly society will not value me. So these are really, really toxic patterns. And hopefully if we find ourselves experiencing them regularly, we can start to identify them and work away from them, because they're definitely in your way. If anything I just said resonates with anybody out there, pay attention. Not good for you.
Yeah, I definitely the workaholism.
Yeah.
because I don't know if we're just conditioned, like you got to always be in movement. And I always say movement doesn't always equal progress. You could just be moving in a circle.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Any footprint.
I want to tell you a hilarious story about that. I remember when I was a little kid, my grandma would come over to the house and she would always insist on cleaning because she was insane. And she would like push the vacuum cleaner around. We had one of those weird vacuum cleaners that tracked things, like old school Hoover. And she'd just leave tracks everywhere. And the reason was because that lady kept forgetting to plug in the vacuum cleaner. So she works really, really hard for an hour and she only makes the house dirtier. That's exactly the point with workaholism. You're right. More work does not equal more success, more productivity. It actually doesn't make any sense. If you think about it, if more work equals more productivity, then Jeff Bezos must be working 100 million times harder than me. And I doubt that. I really doubt that. So it doesn't make sense. We gotta get our thinking straight.
It's all about balance though, right,
Yeah.
Karen? Like, work and play. You gotta take that moment, self-care. You gotta include those things in life because I don't want to look up and just exist it. You only get one life.
But the only way you get there is by curing imposter syndrome moments. And you can only do that by truly understanding that you deserve your success. You deserve good things. It's like when Elle Woods in the great movie Legally Blonde gets asked, you go to Harvard? And she says, yeah, like it's hard. Yeah, that's the attitude we should all have. Rather than, oh my God, did I do okay? Do I deserve to be here? Yeah, I'm supposed to be here.
Yeah. And you made a point about it being very prevalent. It's prevalent in everyone, but more so in women and minorities. And I feel like as an African American woman, it's like it seems like you have to work harder and you still kind of get a crumb of the pie, not a whole slice, so you're working hard for that slice to feel like you fit in. And I think last year was very disheartening with all the events that happened last year, and it really took a toll. And I don't think it just took a toll on Blacks. I think it took a toll on everyone. Like there's no matter what I do, no matter how successful I am, no matter how upstanding I am, I'm still labeled as this thing.
Yeah.
So I can see how that adds extra stress to women and to different cultures when they just want an equal slice. It's not like we're asking for the entire pie. Just want to be a part, So I can see how that's prevalent,
I completely understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
My feminism has been triggered into hyperactive disorder levels because of the wonderful miniseries Mrs. America on Hulu, which portrays Gloria Steinem and Shirley Chisholm, and really the huge pioneers of the feminist movement in the 70s versus Phyllis Schlafly, who was basically the Donald Trump before Donald Trump in the 70s. And why the reason it resonated with me so impactfully was because starting in September, you remember that big number, 900,000 women left the workforce in 1 month. And then they continue to move out of the workforce. We are now back at 1988 levels of participation in the workforce. Now, I can't identify with you as an African-American woman, but I can certainly identify with you as a woman. And I know what you're talking about. So I don't think that it's not real. I do think it is 100% real. We are still working. And actually, because of our rise, the backlash is so fierce. They don't like white men, particularly of a certain age, are not particularly happy about the onset and the influx of incredible power that women have gained. Women made incredible gains. By 2012, 15% of American women were the high earners in their household. This was unheard of in the 70s. That's why Alexis Carrington on Dynasty was such an anomaly. No one saw a woman like that who had a male assistant and rocked it and ate caviar. Today you have Oprah, you have Carly Fiorina, you have Catherine Power, you have real CEOs all over the board and the spectrum, and that's real exciting to see, right?
Yeah, it is.
It is. It's also going to mean a lot of backlash. So what can we do? We can do two things. The first, Renita, is focus on the good as much as possible. For example, it's not that bad. I'm not kidding. I know that that's not 100% true. It's a gentler way to feel. It will make you less reactive and more collaborative. We have made progress. And by the way, in my lifetime, between the 80s and now, like, I know that a lot of my millennial and Gen Z sisters do not remember this, but I'm telling you, it was real different. In the 90s, for a woman to say that the house was not as important to her to manage as her own career and self-actualization would have been met with booing. It was in Oprah's own audience, for example. And today, this is an understanding. Self-actualization first. That is progress. So focus on wherever we have made progress. Ask yourself how we can expand more, because we will capture more people with light than with scaring. And the second thing that I think that we can do is band together. We really are all in this together.
Yep.
We can't segregate ourselves. We cannot shame each other. We cannot feel like we're on opposite. Anywhere you see progress, applaud it, support it, and band together. It's always important for all of us. Amazingly enough, I watched Megyn Kelly speaking. I think she's always controversial, and she's a conservative. I'm not. I'm a progressive liberal. Mm-hmm. So I really can't stomach almost anything she says. Especially since she doesn't like the word feminist. But last week on Bill Maher, she was just a little less annoying. And I kept thinking, you know what? At the end of the day, this is still a voice that is powerful. And for some reason, it's less divisive to the other side. So I'm still going to be kind of okay with it, because the representation is important. Now, again, I know that we really like to label people and identify them as pro or against us.
Right.
But if we look at the large spectrum of humanity overall, this is not an unuseful person. And that's what I mean by that.
I like that we all can contribute to it, even if we have different views. At the end of the day, she's still a woman.
It's a funny thing. Actually, I think a better example is because I'm obsessed with the crown. I really am obsessed with the British monarchy. It's such a weird family, right? And Margaret Thatcher was in the last season. Now, Thatcher is about as controversial and divisive a figure as ever there was. A conservative to end all conservatism. Reagan with a lot of hairspray, basically. But as much as I massively disagree with trickle-down economics and her particular philosophy and her way of leadership, you can't argue with the fact that she put Britain back on the map. She ruled for 12 years. She was extraordinarily effective at her job in many respects. And she was the first woman and only woman in Parliament up until that point. Now that is, you know what I mean? Like, you can't not respect that. You can't not be like, all right, I'll take it.
Right. It's still inspirational. I feel like sometimes you have to separate the personal views and look at the actual person and what they're doing. And we get caught up in that. We get caught up in people's words. We get caught up in people's viewpoints. And with that, you can miss things like what you're mentioning, like the accolades, the accomplishments, and the progress that was made with her being the only woman at that time. That's a lot of progress. That's a footprint, So.
That was a big deal. That was, after in my country, I'm from Israel, Golda Meir, also controversial figure, and so many people always make fun of her appearance, like that's freaking relevant. The woman was a badass. I know what kind of society she grew up in, and she was doing this in. It was amazing what she did. An incredible accomplishment. And we have to give a little bit of respect to that by knowing two things. That is, number one, that we're all in this together.
Right.
Ultimately, progress is progress, period, the end. And number two, that we're much more alike than we're unalike. We really are. And hopefully we'll get back to that, and we'll stop with the shaming and the cancel culture, because I think that middle ground is just a little bit more relaxed. Forget rational, not rational. It's just a little bit more chill. And chill usually, and I say that as a progressive, more chill gets more done.
I agree. The cancel culture actually irritates me, because I'm like, if we cancel everyone, what are we going to do in our spare time? We can't watch anybody, listen to any music.
I agree. Plus, like, who amongst us, and I really mean this, who out there has never made a mistake or said something stupid?
Right.
Like, I grew up in the 80s. Are you kidding me? I have no recollection, thank God, of crap that came out of my mouth, but I really can't imagine that it was always sanguine.
Right. And then now you make a good point. They're going back in the past and pulling stuff that people said like 30 years ago, and like, no, you're canceled. For 20 to 30 years ago.
It's like, yeah, it's, and you know, I kind of understand it. Like I was with an Uber driver who still hated Joe Biden for something he voted on in 1994. Now, I completely understand that if the incarceration of minorities and of course the extraordinary disproportion affected you personally, you'd have a really hard time working through that. But I also want to remind everybody that it's been 30 years and people change. Right. And that's the beauty of life. That's actually the whole point of what we teach here in Be Your Own Kind, in the universe of positive psychology. You can change. And if you believe that you can change, you have to give other people that grace too.
That's true. That's true. And I feel like in the midst of changing, the biggest thing to get over is people's opinions, because you see your change, and I think people that have known you further out, people that like family members and old friends, they're the ones that may ignore the change or still pinpoint you as the person you were yesterday and not today. And I think that's when change gets discouraging.
I wanted to talk to you about something, that really impacted me. There's a book called Rising Out of Hatred by Eli Saslow that I read a couple of years ago in the middle of the Trump administration, because as a Jew, I was becoming extraordinarily alarmed by, the Jewish people have never been attacked more than during the 4 years with hate crimes and hate speech against the Jewish people than during the Donald Trump administration. Yep. And so I became very interested in the Ku Klux Klan and what they stand for and why they think the way they think. And I read this book called Rising Out of Hatred about this guy who was a former KKK guy and came through it because a rabbi's family took him in and started to show him that we're actual human beings who are really nice most of the time and not there to kill you or take your things.
Right.
And I was deeply impressed by the transformation that he made. Not only did I understand why they were so afraid and needed somebody to blame, which is never okay, but really important to just frame ourselves around. They are terrified. That's why they're so hateful. And when you get to that position and see that people can individually make that transformation, you start asking yourself, how can I be more part of the individual allowing of people to find that salvation? Hatred is an awful burden to carry in this lifetime. How can I offer that grace? It is a very hard thing to do. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Ultimate Bible credence. Very, very hard to do.
Yes.
But I think that if we can all at least aspire to it just a little bit more in our day-to-day life by, for example, not commenting on every single post that annoys you, you will start to make progress in your life.
Yeah, and I'm glad you have that understanding. But anything, as you know, I just steer away from the KKK because they are frightening. But
I don't say I'm not. Let me be clear. I do not even a little bit empathize with them, even a tiny bit. I do believe that they are much more prevalent than we thought they were.
Yeah,
which is freaking terrifying. And I personally don't think. I don't know about you, but I never felt scared for my life. And I'm telling you that if the administration had won again, as a Jewish person, I would not feel comfortable.
Yeah, I more so fear for my husband when it comes to things like that. I feel like, and we're probably veering off a little bit, but I feel like the black male, like, yes, the women, we have our, but I feel like they're just being attacked on all different directions, to the point where you're afraid to drive from work to home and praying you don't get pulled over. Yeah. Something as simple as that, you know what I'm saying? And I don't know, I just feel like they just are totally attacked. And that's why it's important for them to be paired with someone that they can be vulnerable with. It doesn't have to be a romantic relationship per se, but supportive family members, supportive friends, someone that they can be vulnerable to. And that goes back to the stress added, by society, not even mentioning, the stress in life, not being able to pay for this and not being able to fill out your, fulfill your goals and dreams. So you already have your personal stresses, but then when you step outside the door, you are pretty pleasing and pleading to God, hey, I would like to walk back in this door. That's frightening.
That is a chilling testimony. Chilling. And everybody should listen to that. And everybody should take it very, very seriously. And I think that we have to understand that this is the situation and the circumstance, which means we have to band together and we've got to be better than this.
Yes.
We really do have to be better than this. I think if anybody standing by observes anything like this and is enjoying privilege, which we have all, I think, come to understand, those of us who are white, we have to stand up and intervene and use our privilege in defense of, in support of, in elevation of. Just as once men stood up, some, not a lot, for women and for women's rights.
Right. And I love the fact that you said privilege, because I think that that's the misconception. We're not privileged. Yes, you are.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
And no one's hating you for that. It's just what you just said. Could you use the privilege to help us out a little bit, or to at least
I think
or empathize?
I get criticized a lot for bringing up the Holocaust because it's such a nightmare of a situation and such a dark period in history. But when I was a little kid in the 80s, aside from watching a lot of VH1 and reading books like you, I thought really deep thoughts like, why the hell was only one family in Holland hiding Jews in the attic? Why? Why did you not read about this all over the place?
Right.
Because most people were terrified to stand up. They were terrified to stand up. Not only were they following, but they were afraid to stand up when they saw that what was happening was horrific.
Yes.
That is the epitome of not acknowledging your privilege. The fact that you get to sleep at night in the comfort of your own home and your neighbors have been yanked out in the dead of night. This is terrifying to me. And I really hope that we realize, and that's what all of these conversations really, this is not a tangent, Renita. When we really understand who we are and we develop empathy, not sympathy, we don't feel sorry for, empathy. Understand the feelings of other people. Understand that we are living in a society. This benefits all of us. We are human beings. We are better than this. We start behaving better than this. And you know what? That leads to real freedom. The freedom of the heart. There is no better way to feel in this lifetime.
Right. And I totally agree with you. And I'm glad that you brought up the Holocaust, because the most annoying thing is when minorities try to compare painful experiences. No, it's all bad.
It's all bad. It's all bad.
Well, the Holocaust, it was worse than slavery. No, it was all bad. That's why I agree with you saying we need to band together.
In what respect, the Holocaust? Come on, you can't compare. Like, that's like comparing dying by arson to dying by poison. You know what?
Right.
It's not comfortable either way.
It was horrible either way.
Exactly.
And why are we comparing pain?
We're not. You're only
healing together.
By state of nature, the analogies are never perfect. Analogies are never flawless, but they are there to convey a sentiment. And the sentiment here is solidarity and the understanding that if you are in a position to do something that is privilege, it's an honor.
Right.
And you can use it for good, or you can squander it by not doing anything with it. And that is privilege in the negative sense. So why don't we all, instead of shaming, and that's why I think people are getting defensive, right? Like they feel shame. Don't feel shame. Instead, feel accountability. Feel a little bit of a personal calling. Feel an opportunity to rise. Those are good feelings, not bad feelings.
Right. Exactly.
Imagine, for example, if Governor Cuomo, who is now accused with sexual harassment and misconduct, instead of let's see how the investigation goes, said, or my actions and conversation were misconstrued, said, I'm deeply sorry. I'm deeply sorry. I would love to see this as I didn't think of it maybe that way, but I'm going to use this as an opportunity to reflect. And now I understand that we're all becoming maybe a little too apologetic in cancel culture, and that's what the turnoff is. But the opposite is being not very evolved.
Right. And just saying, oh, no accountability. That the lack of accountability and like that aggravate me. Even if that wasn't your intent, at least acknowledge you hurt the other person. I always argue that, like, even if you unintentionally hurt my feelings, if I bring it to you and you care about me, why not apologize? I don't know.
Of course, unless there's a shaming involved, which again, if you read the work of Brene Brown, you'll understand that you're pushing the person into a defensive position.
Right.
Like, Juanita, I'll tell you what ultimately encourages me. At the end of Mrs. America, the Gloria Steinem character is alluding to a passage that Steinem herself wrote, which is, maybe I won't see the progress now. The patterns of patriarchy have been solidified over tens of thousands of years. They will not be undone in a couple of years. And as a result, the Equal Rights Act doesn't get ratified until 2020, which is unbelievable, by the way. She said it would take at least 40 years. So I understand that the progress you and I are seeking, social justice, equality for women, real equality for women, not equality, but we're never going to give you maternity leave.
Right.
And we're not going to pay you the same, but equality. I know that that's going to take maybe even more decades, but it will happen.
Yeah.
Because times are changing. And as Martin Luther King once brilliantly said, the arc of history is long, but it always bends towards justice. This is true.
Yes. And we have veered all the way off, but I love this.
It's a good conversation. It's a good conversation.
Yeah, I love this. What were we talking about? Imposter syndrome?
I don't know, man. Look, all I can tell you is the longer I live, the more chill I get about this, because I know, like, for example, in the state of Israel, we can have as much fighting about the Palestinian subject as we want, but demographically, things are changing whether you like it or not. So the world progresses whether you like it or not. Change happens whether you like it or not. Oh, you're not cool with non-binary? Congratulations, it's 2021. Deal with it. So all of these things are just really starting to become a very different shift in time, and we can really relax about it a little bit more. It's very uncomfortable to observe injustice, but it's more comforting and more proactive to understand that overall we are on the up and up.
I agree with that. And to just circle back, I guess to kind of what we were talking about before we got into this awesome conversation, women, we were talking about how the thinking of perfectionists and having to be a boss. And I don't know if you've noticed on social media how it's this superwoman era now, like where the woman have 50 million hands and she's doing so much, and I don't really agree with that, because I feel like, when do you stop and breathe? You know what I'm saying? So what advice do you have for women that just cannot break out of this superhero mode?
If you are serving everyone, you are serving no one. I remember thinking that I could do everything. I could do it all. Whitney Houston told me so. It's not true. You will exhaust yourself. You'll burn yourself out very, very quickly. It's not attainable, and it's also not very productive. I also think that it's part of what's turning people off from hustle culture. If the trade-off for, hustling hard and being a girl boss is never having any downtime ever, I got to be honest with you, that's not very appealing to me. And we have seen through this pandemic just what costs we're talking about here. We have seen what it's like to try to run a career, any career, with children trying to Zoom learn in the next room, if you're lucky, and try to still have some semblance of freedom in this lifetime.
Right.
It's very, very important for us to all set our priorities straight again. To ask ourselves, who are we and how do we want to live? I know that these sound like very indulgent questions. They're the most important questions you will ever ask in your life. Who am I? What matters to me? How do I actually want to live? And how can I create some semblance of that every day.
Because it's a daily thing. You are correct.
Yes. You can't make this decision for 5 years, life and God will dictate that for you. But you can definitely wake up with the understanding that these are the things that matter to you today. This is how you would like to feel. And here's how you will optimize for it. No, you will not control all the circumstances. But the more you do this, more carefully you do this, and the more you believe you deserve it. That's imposter syndrome is the opposite, right? The more you believe you deserve to have a life that feels good to you, the more you will act and line up with that. My life completely changed the day I decided that I don't have to live like that. I don't have to live by anybody else's standards. And I made some really hard, critical choices. I still speak in a way that is very controversial to people. All right. Sorry about that. All the best, Karen. I get to be who I am and to live the way I want to live. And that's the only thing that matters. If you are harming no one and you are elevating and uplifting most of the souls that come in contact with you, you are doing God's work. So just choose that. You'll be fine.
I love that. That, Karen, is what Be Your Own Kind is all about.
Yeah.
You have definitely pinpointed. I just feel, especially in this whole social media culture, that everyone, I'll say it again, everyone is trying to mimic their life by what they see that's posted. And you don't really know what's happening behind closed doors, nor is it our business. What is our business is what we do with our life and what we want to do.
And that's the only thing you can affect anyway. You know, Mother Teresa once brilliantly said, if you want to change the world, start with your own family.
Right. Your family's chaotic, but you outside your family trying to fix another one. That's backwards.
Oh, it is backwards. You know, it's funny. I'm a suicide counselor. I volunteer with Crisis Text Line, and I volunteer at several rehabilitation centers for women who have also survived abusive relationships. And we really are all so much more alike and so much more impacted and get dragged into so many situations that lead us to deep depression and deep self-harm because of this incredible constant trying to impact the outside world and line up with the outside world. You know, you could spare yourself an enormous amount of misery by really believing in you and what you want and lining up with that first. Yeah. And that's what every mother out there should be doing now. Put the oxygen mask on yourself before you put it on the children, because you will not be able to serve them if you die.
What a point. I had to stop and think about what you just said.
It's true.
Yeah, it is.
You know how much time you have to put that oxygen mask off before you die? Like a few minutes. So if you're taking the time to put it on the kids first, how exactly did you help them?
Right. Now they don't have a mom.
Exactly. This is why really it's not selfish. It's not selfishness that I'm teaching. It's self-interest in an enlightened form, enlightened self-interest for the good of others. You must serve yourself.
And this segues into the next topic you wanted to speak of, which was detoxing. I never thought of detoxing in the sense of mental. You know, it's always been, you know, you do the apple cider vinegar, you eat the fiber, and it's always a physical thing before I get too graphic, but it's always a physical detoxing, right? Yeah. And then you come across this, I came across this term maybe several years ago that kind of just put me in the mindset of, you know, eliminating crazy thoughts. And it was like metacognition, I believe is the name of it.
Yes.
Like, can you tell me that I can actually choose what I think? I can actually choose what thoughts I want to entertain, you know? And I feel like when we have these constant flux of thoughts just going through our mind, we feel like we have to think them all, that we have to believe them all, but we actually have the power to choose. You know, and I feel like that's a part of a mental detox, is throwing out what you don't need, throwing out the excess, and keeping the thoughts that are beneficial and constructive for you. And my question to you is, how do you get to that point? Like, how do you get to that point of knowing when to dispel or accept, you know, the thoughts that are floating in your mind?
Well, you asked and answered the question brilliantly. Oh. Detox obviously is a it's a term that's associated with all forms of cleanse. My mom was diagnosed 2 years ago with stage 4 cancer, and she had to start thinking about what she was eating in order to heal, because many of the things that she ate were causing inflammation in the body that were not going to be beneficial to her treatment. I'm very happy to report, by the way, that Mrs. Eldad is cancer free today. So yeah, it does work, even though I wouldn't give up coffee if you actually threatened my life. The same concept does apply to thoughts. We do actually put a lot of toxic thoughts in our body that, just like sugar and caffeine, my beloved caffeine, and I don't know, whatever people are talking about right now, gluten. I don't know. Tom Brady says tomatoes are toxic. They can cause inflammation in the body. They can really start to pile up, and they will ultimately cause you to not experience optimal health. In the exact same way, people who are constantly thinking things like, I can't get ahead. Everything is rigged. Everything is awful. I can't believe I just did that. I can't believe I just ate that. That person doesn't like me. Now, when you think thoughts like this, maybe 1, 2 every now and again, not a problem. But when you think them constantly, they become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Not only are you wandering around the world like a curmudgeon, but you are attracting, people who spill coffee on you at the airport. Like, bad things actually start to happen to you. I can prove it. Have you ever walked into a meeting or a party in a really awful mood and noticed how quickly people don't like you?
Yep.
It's kind of amazing. So you really don't want to live in that. And the secret to starting to hack that and to move into what we call metacognition. Metacognition is the ability to observe your own thoughts, is by understanding something pretty basic. The thoughts are not thinking you. You are thinking the thoughts. What do you think? You're just receiving them from some spaceship? No one is broadcasting them at you. I don't care how many subliminal Coca-Cola ads we're getting. We are thinking our own thoughts still. I don't know how much Facebook is going to advance, but for now, I'm thinking my own thoughts. And if I understand that, then I can start to observe my thoughts. And there are really only 5 categories of toxic thoughts: judgment, negativity. People who say the economy is really bad without even thinking about whether or not it applies to Jeff Bezos. Number 3, insecurity. Thoughts of deep self-hate, especially. So many of us are so mean to ourselves in our head. Number 4, blame and resentment. In the world of toxic thoughts, these are actual poison. And finally, impatience, the millennial favorite. I don't know about you, Renita, but I still remember a time when you had to wait 8 weeks for a package to arrive. Today, you think about it and Amazon's already delivered it.
That is true. I'm a millennium on the cusp. I try to tell people that, like, I'm still over there with Generation Z, I believe. I can wait. Like, I still mail.
Oh, you mean Gen X, the old people?
Is it? Yeah, I get mixed up.
Gen X is above you, and then we have the Xennials. That's me. That's 1977 and 1983, 1984, something like that.
Yeah.
And then below you is Gen Z, who definitely don't know how to wait for anything
at all. But
the email
wasn't a thing for me. Like, email didn't come until high school.
Exactly.
Me.
So
right.
If you're definitely in my experience of life, which is we really kind of practiced boredom, empathy, and waiting until we were in our teens. These are wonderful qualities, by the way. I highly recommend them to any young person out there. The most important thing to start to understand is when you recognize thoughts like this, I know what's going on already. I'm going to judge that mom for losing it at Target. I definitely think that the economy is bad and I can't start a business right now. And there are no men out there. I am not good enough and everybody can see it. I never forgive that person. I can't forgive that person. Or I want it now. Where is it? Wherever you are on the spectrum of those thoughts, just start to understand that you are taking tiny little doses of poison. And you must start to observe those thoughts and ask yourself just 3 basic questions. Number 1, is the problem, or is my reaction with judgment, insecurity, doubt, resentment, is that the real problem? The answer, by the way, always your reaction. Hugs, Karen. Number 2, is there any other way to see this? For example, perhaps something that hasn't materialized yet, that you're like, really, I want it now. Maybe it's sparing you. Maybe it's not supposed to be for you. Maybe it's bad for you. Or maybe it's coming and you're just killing it with your doubt. And number 3, what is the opportunity here? What's the opportunity here? Well, I don't know. Maybe, for example, to find out something I didn't know before. To get something even bigger than I was hoping for. In forgiveness, instead of resentment, the opportunity is always to let yourself off the freaking hook and let yourself live your life. It's never about forgiving them or letting them off the hook. It's always about peace for you. So the point is, if you could just ask those 3 questions, is the problem the problem? Is my reaction the bigger problem? Is there any other way to see this? And is there an opportunity here? If you can get through those 3 questions, you are in the universe of metacognition. You are observing and analyzing your own thoughts. And if you can do that, like any good trial lawyer, you will usually be able to make your case and get to the other side. It'll change your life. It changed mine. I gave a whole TED talk about this.
Man, is that the one, know what you don't know, or did you do another one?
You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, you don't know
and
what
I
you
literally
don't know.
teach that. It's called the pause principle. And I always say, like, just find 15 seconds in any moment where you feel triggered.
Yeah.
Just ask those questions. You will come across as A, much better at arguing, and B, you'll be more calm.
Yeah,
Calm
I
people
love
get
that
results.
talk. You said the lady's kid was beaten.
Yeah, the lady's
was
kid was
laughing.
kicking the back of my seat. And this is a great example. I tell a story in that TED talk about a lady whose kid was kicking the back of my seat to the point where I was like, we have got to throw this kid off the plane. And that's how I'm observing the situation. And then I started to freak out. And this is when I started to ask myself, is me freaking out the problem? Or is the problem the problem? Now, a lot of people would say that stupid baby is the problem. No, it's not. It's me freaking out. I can come up with lots of solutions. Number 2, is there any other way to see this? I don't know. Who knows? Maybe the kid has some kind of a football disorder. And finally, number 3, what's the opportunity here? My opportunity was to just stay put and see what happened. And that lady ended up telling me, as you know, that her husband had just left her. She was out of sorts. She was not able to control the kid. She was not in a great mindset. Right. And we became very good friends as a result of my ability to stay chill. I would have missed out on a really good friend and the ability to serve as a shoulder to cry on for somebody who needed me that day.
Wow. And I love that story because we do just stop with our emotion, right? Like, this is irritating. I'm trying to travel. Kids shouldn't even be allowed. I hear that all the time. Kids shouldn't even be allowed to fly. How are they going to get there? But yeah, so it's like, you know, and when we get caught in that emotion, we miss the purpose. Because I feel like everything happens for a reason. Nothing is accidental. Like, so had you stuck with your emotion, you would have missed out on a really great friend. So
that's exactly right.
Yeah, even though you just verbatimly just said that, but I think that's just, I feel like that's the problem. You have to get out of you sometime.
Well, it's true for everything. It's true even for solving the feminist issue. Again, why we have to ask ourselves, how is this serving us? How is this serving us? Well, I mean, it's very good to see that women are going back to 1988 levels in the workforce, because now I can actually say, see, I told you it was a systemic issue. And that's great, because hopefully a call to arms will follow. Otherwise, everybody gets complacent. Yeah.
Right.
And I got to think positive. Do you know why? Because the alternative is terrible. To not think positive is to think negative. And to think negative is, I mean, it's so depressing and it doesn't actually get you results. So you're better off just at least trying.
And you miss the little good things, though. Like, I don't know if everyone's just looking for this gigantic progress, but what about the small progress? What about the positive nuggets? There are good things happening in the world.
Amen.
You know, even in 2020, there were, believe it or not, good things that happened. You know, and I feel like, yes, the pandemic it rearranged our entire life, right? You know, but there were some things that I grasped from that moment. There were some things about me, like self-reflection and how I think about things, how I prioritize things. Everything that you and I have discussed during this whole episode were some things I had to come into realization of being a workaholic. Why do I not feel good enough? Things like that. Like, I didn't have the distraction of being busy. I had to sit down and really, really think, like, and self-reflect. I was forced to be with me. You know what I'm saying? So not all things that appear bad are bad.
No. In my practice, I always say, if you'll allow me one bad word, pray for a shitstorm. Moments like this, they make us.
Yeah.
Suddenly everything that really matters becomes crystal clear, like a beautiful day.
Right.
And breath, free breath, and the health of our loved ones. And it's very important to stay in that. I reflect on my mortality very often, not because I'm a morbid person, but because I know that I'm very lucky to be here all the time. The fact that sometimes I take a plane and it lands is a miracle. The fact that I wake up and the cells of my body are working is a miracle. The fact that I have the privilege of flying through the air and notice the kid kicking my seat is a miracle. And so if you can stay in that deep gratitude and that appreciation, you will be living a much more positive life. And by the way, you're also going to get much more positive results.
Yes, because energy.
Yep. Right.
Well, BYK does have a staple question. And if you can describe yourself in one word, what would it be?
Ease.
And why?
I used to be really tightly wound. And now I'm clear and relaxed most of the time. And I think that when people meet me, I hope that when people meet me, even when I'm talking about topics that make me very animated, like today's wonderful conversation, I hope they above all feel warm and comfortable, like at home. That's what ease is about for me. I think that's the feeling that you get from real love. Nothing is an effort anymore. No need to be a workaholic, Renita.
I love you. You have just been speaking to my soul this entire time.
It's because we're the same person. Again, all that VH1.
So okay, enthusiasm coaching. What do your services provide?
Well, I provide mostly executive and personal coaching at an advanced level to corporations, but I do have larger group coaching programs that help you to get out of your own stuntedness, your own stuck feeling. I created it to solve the problem I had 5-6 years ago when I was going through that divorce, and I didn't know what I was going to do next, and I didn't know how to get out of my own way. So that's really what coaching is for and what this coaching program is about. Anybody can check it out on KerenEldad.com. By the way, not Karen like the meme, Keren, not Karen. And I hope everybody checks out the Coach Podcast, because I also do the same thing, which is I just answer people's questions. People have a lot going on right now. I don't know if you've heard, but we're drinking too much, we're eating too much, we're suffering. And I think that there's nothing more important than giving people hope and answers.
Yeah, most definitely. So, and where can they find you on? Are you on Instagram, Facebook?
That's right. Well, I'm on everything, but the only one I really like is Instagram. I'm on TikTok, I'm on Facebook. The one I really like is Instagram. It's Coach Keren. And that's because I get to share really awesome memes and the occasional cat picture.
I love the cat pictures.
I love the cat pictures.
I just posted something off TikTok where the cat was walking down the runway.
Yes, I saw that, and it was like walk, passion, baby, right? I saw like whoever did this is a genius. And that's an amazing thing to say, because so many people talk about how terrible social media is, but you know what? If you just go there and approach it with joy and look for joy, there's so much joy there too. So really, it's always about you and how you're coming to the table. The thoughts are not thinking you. You are the one who is choosing.
Exactly.
Instead of focusing on all the hate and garbage, you can focus on the cat videos.
There's a ton of them.
It's so simple, really. Think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all about perspective and what you can allow. And I always tell people, like, the serenity prayer kind of make you feel like there's a lot of things within your control, but really your thoughts, your reactions, anything involving you are the only things that you can actually control.
And the reason to be your own kind is because you wake up with you, you go to bed with you, you got to be okay with you. That's how you can really start to really be in control, is to start to like you.
Yes.
Like you enough to care about your preferences and to care about demanding a great experience in this one and only life you will ever have.
Yes, most definitely. Because you can't escape you. That is a fact.
I've tried, believe me.
I'm just gonna leave you at home. I'll be back. And
Exactly.
So, Keren, I really, really, really enjoyed this episode. And I hope you guys did too. I hope you guys learned some nuggets and learned that you're not an imposter. You are incredible. You are talented. You are full of potential. You are a dynamic person. And it's all because of who you are, and that is definitely what I grabbed. And I thank you so much for taking, the time to come on our platform. I just thoroughly enjoyed, and I was inspired, by the things that you were saying. And until next time, everyone, don't forget to be your own kind and be kind to one another. Bye.